Mountain ranges create beautiful yet harsh landscapes, and attempting to climb them isn't always a good idea if you're unprepared. Some mountains, such as Everest, are potentially deadly due to the altitude and freezing conditions, whereas others are dangerous due to them being volcanic, or due to the difficult terrain. In today's video, we'll be completely ignoring these factors, as instead we'll be judging how deadly the mountain ranges are based on their wildlife. We'll be travelling around the world to find the deadliest locations, and to start off with, we'll be heading over to Africa. The Bale Mountains of Ethiopia are extremely diverse, with many of the plants and animals found here existing nowhere else in the world. This mountain range's most iconic inhabitant is arguably the endangered Ethiopian wolf, but you can count yourself lucky if you manage to find one. They are one of the world's rarest canines, and they are Africa's most endangered carnivore. If you do happen to come across one, you have little to fear, as they are only around the size of a coyote and they mostly feed on the rodents that they share their ecosystem with. Mostly because of habitat loss and human-wildlife conflicts, there are only around 360 to 440 left in the wild, with more than half of them living in the Bale Mountains. There are a few larger herbivores that can also be found here, such as the mountain nyala, but these animals are very rarely a threat, with there only being a few documented cases where these animals have killed humans. Most of the higher altitudes are dominated by rodents and birds, but if you travel closer to sea level, you can find some more dangerous species. The Himalayas forest is an evergreen forest in the Bale Mountains, and here you can find both dangerous herbivores and dangerous predators. The giant forest hog is the largest wild member of the pig family, but despite reaching a maximum weight of around 275 kilograms, they can be extremely elusive. These animals are mostly nocturnal and are rarely encountered, but if they're anything like their family members, then they are fully capable of killing a human if they feel threatened. The presence of large herbivores and omnivores such as the giant forest hog can attract predators, and unfortunately for these pigs, there are lots of dangers hiding in this forest. There are small populations of both leopards and lions in the Himalayas forest, and every now and again these impressive animals claim human lives. Leopard and lion attacks in Africa are still relatively rare, but it's estimated that leopards kill around 250 people globally each year, and most sources claim that lions kill around 200 people a year. The ranges of both of these animals should be taken into account, as the leopard has a much larger range with many fatal attacks occurring in India. There are a few other potentially dangerous African animals that also inhabit the Bale Mountains, but most of the danger comes in the form of big cats that hide in its forests. For this reason, the Bale Mountains take the 7th place spot, and for our next section we'll be heading down under. The Great Dividing Range consists of a complex system of ranges, plateaus, and hills that extend along almost all of the eastern coast of Australia, and as it's so vast, it changes greatly along its length. Some areas are arid and barren, whereas others are covered in lush rainforests. This means that you can find a wide range of Australian wildlife here, but of course not all of these animals are dangerous. For some reason, in popular media, Australia is always portrayed as one of the deadliest places in the world when it comes to wildlife, but this simply isn't the case. It's really lacking in large land predators, with the dingo being its largest, but there are many dangers in its waters. Thankfully, most of Australia's dangerous aquatic and semi-aquatic predators such as sharks and crocodiles are found near the coast, so you're not really going to encounter them along the Great Dividing Range. Dingoes can be found in some parts, but as we covered in the most recent video, dingoes have only killed 2 humans in Australia since records began, and unless you're a child, you should be completely safe. The southern cassowary is more than capable of claiming human lives with its powerful kicks and lethal inner claws, but to this day they have only killed 2 people, with one of them being a Florida man. There are plenty of venomous spiders that can be found along the Great Dividing Range, but these creatures aren't really going to cause you any problems, as anti-venom is easy to find, and the last time that somebody was killed by a spider in Australia was in 1979. The real danger along this extensive mountain range comes in the form of snakes, with many of Australia's deadliest snakes being found here. Now if you're in a relatively built up area, then it's easy to deal with venomous snake bites as you're never too far away from anti-venom, but if you're halfway up a mountain and you get bitten, you could be in some trouble. Since November 2022, there have been 6 snakebite fatalities in Australia, and all of these bites are thought to be inflicted by the eastern brown snake. One of the reasons why these snakes are deadlier than all of the other species is because they are so common along the east of Australia, and they are known for being quite defensive and quick to bite. A bite from this snake can prove fatal in as little as 30 minutes, which isn't really enough time to make it down a mountain and to get aid. There are, of course, a few other venomous snakes here that can cause you problems, and the terrain makes the snakes hard to spot, which means that if you're careless, you can easily step on one. If you're wary and prepared, you'll be relatively safe along the Great Dividing Range, but the combination of tricky land animals and venomous snakes means that it takes the 6th place spot. The Ural Mountains are a north to south mountain range that extends through Eurasia, and it forms part of the conventional boundary between Europe and Asia. Here you can find many of the iconic Eurasian mammals, some of which can claim the lives of humans. Most of the herbivores here are relatively harmless and flee in the face of humans, but there is one that you'll need to avoid at all costs. The moose is by far the largest deer in the world, with some measuring over 2 meters at the shoulder. Unlike some other deer that are skittish in nature, moose have quite an attitude and often charge when they come across humans in the wild. It's estimated that around 5 to 10 people are killed by moose each year in Europe, but the majority of these deaths are the result of road collisions. If you meet a moose in the wild, then it's a good idea to slowly retreat and leave it alone, or it could all end very badly. And the same can be said for a few other animals that can be found in the Ural Mountains. Wolverines are pretty formidable animals and are capable of targeting all of the herbivores that they come across, but despite their reputation, they choose to avoid conflict with humans, and there has never been a documented case where a wolverine has killed a human. A much more dangerous predator of this region is the Eurasian wolf, which has a very healthy population along this mountain range. Most Eurasian wolves have developed a healthy fear of humans over the years, as they have been heavily persecuted for attacks on humans and livestock. If you did come across a particularly daring pack of wolves in a remote part of the Ural Mountains, then you could be in real trouble. And in this area, many unexplained disappearances have been blamed on wolves. By far the most dangerous animal that you could encounter in the Ural Mountains is the brown bear, with hungry and desperate bears being a real problem. The brown bears of Eurasia tend to be less aggressive than the brown bears of North America, but there are still multiple attacks in this area each year. Because there is a relatively small human population along the wilder parts of the Ural Mountains, fatalities are still rare, but if you wander around for long enough, you could encounter a deadly animal. The large predators of this mountain range means that it takes the 5th place spot, and for our next section we'll be heading over to arguably the most iconic mountain range in the world. The Himalayas is a giant mountain range that separates the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan plateau, and within it you can find some of the world's highest peaks, including Mount Everest. The slopes and forests of this mountain range are extremely biodiverse, but not all of its animals are easy to find. The red panda is easily the cutest and one of the rarest Himalayan inhabitants, but these animals are far from deadly and are easily startled by humans, even in captivity. The snow leopard is perfectly adapted for hunting in high altitude rocky environments, and they are notoriously hard to spot in their natural habitat. This is due to the fact that they have incredible camouflage and are extremely elusive, and this means that they can get within meters of their prey without them noticing. Strangely, the snow leopard fits into the category of animals that could easily hunt humans but never do, as there has never been a verified case of a snow leopard killing a human. The Himalayas also has its own subspecies of brown bear in the Himalayan brown bear, and even though historically attacks have been rare, they are increasing due to human-related factors such as habitat loss and climate change. This mountain range also has its own grey wolf subspecies in the Himalayan wolf, but this canine is smaller and lighter than most of the wolves across Europe and North America. The Himalayan black bear is a far deadlier beast, as it'll often attack humans if it's startled or if it has young. Similarly to the Himalayan brown bear, attacks have seen a sharp rise in recent years due to human-related factors, and as some of the largest specimens can reach 180 kilograms, these animals can easily eliminate humans. To find some of the more dangerous land mammals, you'll have to head to lower elevations, as this is where you can find Bengal tigers. Now, Bengal tigers are often associated with Indian forests and grasslands, but there are populations that can be found in the Himalayan foothills. It's estimated that tigers kill around 40 to 50 people globally each year, and fatal attacks in the Himalayas aren't unheard of. In the same areas, you can find giant herbivores that you really don't want to mess with, such as the Indian rhino and the Asian elephant. Because of factors such as human-wildlife conflict and human encroachment, some Asian elephants have become extremely aggressive towards humans, and it's estimated that Asian elephants claim the lives of around 400 to 500 people a year. All of these mammalian threats mean that the Himalayas slot in at 4th place, but you could argue that Everest is far deadlier than any of these animals. The Carpathian Mountains extend across central and southeastern Europe, and across this range there are many diverse ecosystems. Large parts of this mountain range still remain wild and untamed, and it contains Europe's largest populations of wolves, lynx, and brown bears. The latter is the main reason why this mountain range is on the list, as in recent years it's become a bear attack hotspot. In the last 20 years, 27 people have been killed by brown bears in Romania, and these fatal attacks usually happen in and around the Carpathian Mountains. The most recent fatal attack was in July of this year, when a biker got a little too close to a mother bear with cubs. What makes this case particularly brutal was the fact that the man was wearing full biker gear and a helmet, but the bear still killed him and dragged him 80 meters down a steep ravine. The man managed to take a picture of the bear before it attacked him, and if you get this close to a bear with cubs, then you should know that you're in trouble. This was the second fatal bear attack in the Romanian section of the Carpathian Mountains this year, and there have been more attacks in other countries along this mountain range, such as Slovakia and Poland. The unusual number of attacks can be explained by an increasing population of brown bears in the region and the irresponsible treatment of the bears, with many tourists feeding the bears, making them more likely to attack. The Carpathian Mountains have a similar range of wildlife to most other mountain ranges across Eurasia, but at the moment it's a bear attack hotspot, and that's why it takes the 3rd place spot. The Rocky Mountains are a giant beautiful mountain range that passes through the US and Canada, and it's the largest mountain system in North America. The animals that can be found here are similar to the animals on many European mountain ranges, but the American brown bears and moose tend to be a little larger and more aggressive. This increases the chance of a nasty encounter, and there are also other potentially deadly animals that can be found here. The American black bear has a massive population across North America, with there being an estimated 700,000 to 950,000 of them in the wild. Most American black bears will choose to flee when they encounter humans, but they can be extremely dangerous when startled or when protecting their young. There have been 11 fatal black bear attacks in North America since the year 2020, and there have been 12 fatal brown bear attacks. Another predator that should be added to the danger list is the cougar, with particularly large specimens sometimes viewing humans as a food source. Despite this, fatal cougar attacks are still extremely rare, with there only being one fatal cougar attack in North America since the year 2020. Meeting a cougar face to face is much more terrifying than stepping on a snake and receiving a fatal dose of venom, but the data shows us that the latter is much more likely to happen. Around 1 person a year is killed by rattlesnakes in North America, and the Rocky Mountains are home to a few species with extremely potent venom. The mountain goat is another distinctive mammal that can be found along this range, and even though they may not seem dangerous at first, under certain circumstances they can be deadly. They are surprisingly powerful animals, and they have claimed the lives of brown bears that have attacked them in the past. If you meet any animal, large or small, in the Rockies, then you need to treat them with respect, and the long list of formidable animals that can be found here means that this mountain range comes in at 2nd place. The Western Ghats run along the western coast of the Indian Peninsula, and it traverses 6 Indian states. There are thought to be almost 1,000 tigers and at least 10,000 Asian elephants that can be found here, meaning that there's always a chance that you could run into danger. The reason why the Western Ghats ranks higher than the Himalayas that also has similar wildlife is because the Western Ghats is a relatively low altitude mountain range, and its proximity to the equator means that it has a relatively warm climate year round. This means that the more dangerous predators and large herbivores are more common here than in the Himalayas, and when it comes to animal attacks on humans, no other country comes close to India. Because of factors such as human encroachment and deforestation paired with India's giant human population, the country has a relatively high number of fatal animal attacks. Many of its iconic predators are often forced to head into cities in search of food, and human-wildlife conflicts is extremely common. There are also a few other deadly animals that we are still yet to cover, and the snakes are some of the biggest dangers here. Because of the lack of antivenom and adequate healthcare in rural areas, unlike in places such as Australia, venomous bites often result in death. It's estimated that around 50,000 to 58,000 people die in India each year from snake bites, and the Western Ghats are home to some of the deadliest species. The king cobra and Russell's viper can be found along this mountain range, and so can many large herbivores and omnivores that need to be treated with respect. The Indian bison is extremely muscular and can be very dangerous if threatened, with the most recent fatal incident taking place in June of this year. Even though the sloth bear's diet mostly consists of insects, they are known for being one of the more aggressive bears. Because they live in such competitive ecosystems, they need to be fierce to stay alive, and when humans approach them, they don't need much encouragement to attack. The high number of attacks in the area and the long list of deadly animals means that the Western Ghats takes the top spot, but it's still a beautiful place to watch wildlife if you're careful. Of course, these videos are just a bit of fun and shouldn't be taken too seriously, but if you think there are any mountain ranges that I should have included, then feel free to let me know down below. But for now, that's about it for this video, and until next time, goodbye.